Captain Mira Thorne stood ramrod straight on the bridge of the United Earth diplomatic vessel Polite Society, mentally rehearsing the first contact protocols for the 17th time that morning. The ship's name, like everything else about humanity's approach to galactic relations, had been carefully chosen to project an image of refined civility. Status report, Lieutenant Patel, she requested in the measured tones that had become second nature after years of diplomatic service. Zoltarian diplomatic escort approaching, Captain. Their communication patterns match exactly what the xenolinguistic team predicted, replied Patel, his fingers dancing over the holographic controls. They seem extremely methodical. Thorne nodded approvingly. Excellent. Remember everyone, the Zoltarians are known for their precise nature and adherence to protocol. The diplomatic corps has been preparing for this encounter for years. Our instructions are clear. Commander Jackson Wolfe, her second in command, and a man with spectacularly poor impulse control in his off hours, leaned closer to whisper. You mean the instruction to pretend humans aren't actually chaotic disaster monkeys who solved interstellar travel while still binging reality shows and picking fights online? Precisely that instruction, Commander, Thorne replied without moving her lips, her diplomatic smile never faltering. The prime directive of human interstellar relations remains: don't let the aliens know what we're really like. On the view screen, the approaching Zoltarian vessel gleamed with mathematical perfection, all precise angles and immaculate symmetry. It was rumored the Zoltarians had achieved space travel 3,000 years before humans had invented the wheel, largely because they found circular objects unnecessarily continuous and lacking in definable vertices. Incoming transmission, announced Communications Officer Miguel Rodriguez. On screen, Thorne commanded, subtly adjusting her uniform collar and adopting the serene, enlightened expression that Earth's diplomatic corps had spent decades perfecting, a look that suggested humanity had evolved far beyond petty concerns like reality television, but social media arguments, and putting pineapple on pizza. The screen flickered to life, revealing a tall, slate-gray alien with geometrically arranged facial features that gave the impression of having been plotted on graph paper. Greetings, representatives of Earth. I am Senior Diplomatic Coordinator Vex 427 Alpha of the Zoltarian Federation. We acknowledge your approach and recognize your adherence to the Galactic Standard Communication Protocols version 7.3.2. Thorne inclined her head precisely 15 degrees, the angle the xenocultural team had identified as conveying maximum respect without subservience. Senior Diplomatic Coordinator, we are honored by your reception. I am Captain Mira Thorne of the United Earth vessel Polite Society. We come seeking peaceful discourse and mutual understanding. What she didn't say was, Endation. We've been rehearsing this conversation for months to make sure none of us accidentally mentions Earth's most watched streaming show, Galaxy's hottest dance crew, or our planet's inexplicable obsession with videos of small animals being startled. Your linguistic adherence is noted and appreciated, replied Vex 427 Alpha. Please proceed to coordinates 347.889 by 42.005 by 7842.001, where you will dock with our diplomatic station. Ambassador Fletcher of your Earth Diplomatic Corps has already arrived via quantum transit and awaits your support team. Thorne maintained her diplomatic smile while internally grimacing. Ambassador Rex Fletcher was notorious throughout the Corps, brilliant but volatile, with a diplomatic persona that required constant maintenance, like trying to keep a lid on a pot of boiling water. If anyone was going to crack humanity's carefully crafted veneer of enlightened civility, it would be Fletcher. We shall proceed immediately, she confirmed. We look forward to formally establishing relations between our civilizations. As the transmission ended, Thorne allowed herself exactly 3 seconds of tension release before turning to her crew. Well, that's Phase 1 complete. Remember, Everyone we represent, all of humanity. The Zoltarians have been observing Earth from afar for decades, but this is their first close contact. They believe we're a species of dignified, rational beings who have transcended our baser instincts. So basically, said Lieutenant Rodriguez, our job is to keep pretending that humans aren't actually the cosmic equivalent of that friend who looks totally professional until they've had 3 drinks at the office party. Exactly, Thorne replied. Keep the facade intact. For the sake of Earth standing in the galactic community, don't let them see behind the curtain. The Zoltarian diplomatic station was a marvel of precision engineering, a dodecahedron with exactly 62,500 identical chambers arranged in perfect mathematical harmony. As Thorne led her team through the sterile, angle-obsessed corridors, she found herself longing for the comfortable chaos of human architecture, where things like character, not making everything look like it was designed by a protractor with OCD, were actual considerations. Captain, whispered Commander Wolf as they approached the main conference chamber, quick briefing on Ambassador Fletcher's current state. His tone carried the wariness of someone asking about an unstable explosive device. According to my last update, Thorne murmured back. He's been here for 7 standard hours and has maintained diplomatic composure, despite the Zoltarians' tendency toward direct observations. 7 hours of Fletcher not losing his shit. That's got to be some kind of record. Language, Commander Thorne warned, though privately she agreed. Ambassador Rex Fletcher was Earth's most brilliant xenodiplomatic genius at cross-species negotiation when he kept his temper. When he didn't, well, there was a reason the Corps had an entire crisis management team dedicated solely to Fletcher incidents. The doors to the conference chamber parted with geometric precision to reveal a cavernous room dominated by a 12-sided table. Seated around it were various Zoltarian officials, all wearing identical gray robes with only subtle rank indicators differentiating them. And there, standing out like a supernova in a dark nebula, was Ambassador Fletcher, a stocky, red-faced human whose diplomatic robes seemed perpetually on the verge of being disheveled despite their advanced wrinkle-resistant technology. Ah, Captain Thorne. Fletcher boomed, his voice carrying the forced joviality of someone already at their wits' end. So pleased you could join us. The High Council and I have been having the most illuminating exchange of cultural perspectives. Thorne recognized the warning signs immediately, the slightly too wide smile, the barely perceptible twitch at the corner of his left eye, the way he was gripping his ceremonial diplomatic staff so tightly his knuckles had gone white. Ambassador Fletcher was about 2 minutes away from what the Corps euphemistically called a candor event. Ambassador, she acknowledged with a perfect diplomatic bow. High Council members, we are honored by your reception. The lead Zoltarian, distinguished by an additional geometric pattern on their robe, rose with fluid precision. Captain Thorne, I am High Counselor Zin 896 Omega. Your arrival is appropriately timed. We were just discussing the biological inefficiencies inherent in human physiology. Fletcher's eye twitch intensified. A fascinating topic, Thorne interjected smoothly. We humans find great value in studying biological diversity across species. Indeed, continued Zin 896 Omega, apparently oblivious to Fletcher's reddening face. We find it remarkable that your species achieved space travel, given your numerous design flaws. The inefficiency of your digestive system alone represents a 27.8% waste of potential energy. Fletcher's grip on his staff tightened further. The High Council has been educating me on the superiority of Zoltarian biology, he said through clenched teeth, each word precisely enunciated as though being forced through a very small opening. Particularly their assessment that humans are, and I quote, bewilderingly primitive for a species with opposable thumbs. Thorne shot him a warning look, Different evolutionary paths lead to different biological solutions, each with their own advantages in their native environments. Objectively incorrect, stated another council member flatly. Our analysis indicates that humans are inherently flawed. For instance, your reproductive system shares waste disposal channels, a design error no competent engineer would permit. Commander Wolf coughed suddenly, clearly fighting back inappropriate laughter. Thorn contemplated having him court-martialed. Furthermore, continued the Zoltarian, your species requires constant unconsciousness for nearly 1/3 of your existence. Such vulnerability would have been eliminated through proper evolutionary guidance. Fletcher's face had achieved a shade of red previously only documented in certain dwarf stars. Proper evolutionary guidance, he repeated slowly. Indeed, confirmed Zin 896 Omega. Had your species been properly designed rather than randomly assembled through primitive evolutionary processes, these flaws would have been corrected. The fact that humans have achieved spaceflight despite being, essentially, poorly optimized primates with delusions of adequacy is the greatest mystery our xenobiologists have encountered. The conference room fell silent. Thorn could practically hear the countdown to catastrophe ticking in her head. Fletcher set his diplomatic staff down with exaggerated care. High Counselor, he began with unnatural calmness, would you care for some coffee? It's a traditional Earth beverage we offer during diplomatic exchanges. Thorn froze. Coffee was not part of the approved diplomatic refreshment package. More importantly, giving Ambassador Fletcher access to caffeine during a tense negotiation violated at least 7 different diplomatic corps regulations, all of which had been instituted after previous incidents. Ambassador, she began cautiously, perhaps the traditional tea would be more. Coffee, Fletcher insisted with a smile that wouldn't have fooled a concussed puppy. So, I insist. In fact, I have my personal supply right here. From within his robes, he produced a thermal container that Thorn immediately recognized as containing his infamous diplomatic emergency reserve, a coffee blend, so potent it was rumored to have been classified as a controlled substance in 3-star systems. What happened next would later be described in the official diplomatic report as an unfortunate cultural misunderstanding resulting in liquid refreshment redistribution. The unofficial report, filed separately and restricted to the highest levels of Earth government, more accurately described it as the day Ambassador Fletcher lost his shit and threw scalding coffee at the Zoltarian High Council while delivering a profanity-laden lecture on evolutionary biology that would make Darwin spin in his grave. You geometrically obsessed pencil pushers. Fletcher roared, his diplomatic facade crumbling like a sandcastle in a tsunami. Do you have any idea what humans had to overcome to get here? While your ancestors were calculating the perfect angles for your pretentious architecture, our ancestors were fighting off saber-toothed tigers with sticks. The thermal container in his hand shook dangerously, sloshing drops of near-lethal coffee onto the immaculate conference table. Ambassador Thorn hissed, Protocol 7A explicitly forbids. Screw Protocol 7A, Fletcher bellowed, now fully committed to diplomatic Armageddon. I've spent 7 hours listening to these protractor-humping gray pencils explain why humans are inefficiently designed. Do you know what inefficiency is? It's called having fun. Something your species clearly edited out along with any sense of humor or imagination. The Zoltarian High Council sat in stunned silence, their geometrically arranged facial features registering what might have been shock. If shock hadn't been deemed an inefficient emotional response and purged from their culture centuries ago. Ambassador Fletcher, began High Counselor Zin 896 Omega with mathematical precision, your emotional display is unnecessarily chaotic, and... Oh, I'll show you chaotic. Fletcher interrupted, and with a grand, sweeping gesture that would have made theatrical directors weep with envy, he flung the contents of his thermal container across the conference table, The coffee thick, black, and brewed to a density that challenged several laws of physics arced through the air in what seemed like slow motion. Captain Thorne found herself calculating the trajectory and concluding that the diplomatic incident was now upgrading itself from major to historic. They'll be teaching this disaster in xenodiplomatic academies for generations. The liquid splashed across the front of Zin 896 Omega's immaculate gray robe, instantly creating a pattern that was, ironically, more mathematically complex than anything Zoltarian designers had ever conceived. Fletcher announced triumphantly, is human chaos theory in action. Unpredictable, messy, and you know what? It's beautiful. We humans embrace our inefficiencies. We celebrate our evolutionary quirks. You know why we sleep? Because dreams are awesome. You know why our digestive system is inefficient? So we can enjoy pizza. Lieutenant Rodriguez leaned over to Commander Wolf. Is he defending humanity by praising our ability to eat junk food and take naps? And doing a surprisingly effective job of it, Wolf whispered back, looking impressed. The stunned silence in the room was broken by the urgent beeping of communication devices as every Zoltarian present received urgent messages. Apparently, the diplomatic incident was already sending shockwaves through their society. Oh God, Thorne muttered, activating her emergency comm link to Earth Command. Admiral Cheng, we have a code Fletcher. I repeat, a code Fletcher of unprecedented magnitude. Admiral Cheng's voice came through with resigned acceptance. What did he throw this time? Coffee, sir. At the entire High Council. Actual coffee or his special reserve. The special reserve, sir. A long pause. Well, it was a good run. 200 years of pretending to be civilized. I'll alert the President that Operation Dignified Facade has been compromised. Meanwhile, Fletcher was just hitting his stride. You want to know what makes humanity special? It's not our technology or our biology, it's our ability to be absolute disasters and still somehow stumble our way to the stars. We invented nuclear power while still fighting over imaginary lines on maps. We cured cancer while making reality TV shows about people eating bugs for money. We're a mess and we're proud of it. The Zoltarians were now huddling together, engaging in rapid communications while occasionally glancing at Fletcher with what could only be described as fascinated horror. Then something unexpected happened. One of the younger Zoltarian aides stepped forward, looking at the coffee stain on the High Counselor's robe with something approaching wonder. The chaos pattern, they whispered. It's beautiful in its complexity. Our mathematicians have been attempting to model such unpredictability for centuries. Fletcher paused mid-rant, momentarily thrown off his rhythm. What? The aide turned to him with something that might almost be excitement. Your outburst, it represents an emotional algorithm we've been unable to replicate. The coffee distribution pattern alone contains mathematical principles our most advanced computers have failed to generate. High Counselor Zin 896 Omega dabbed at the stain with a geometrically folded napkin, examining it with new interest. Indeed, perhaps there is value in chaos we have not recognized. Thorne exchanged bewildered glances with her crew. This was not in any of the diplomatic scenario projections. Admiral, she whispered into her comm, you might want to hold on that alert. Something unexpected is happening. Fletcher, never one to waste momentum, seized the opportunity. Damn right there's value in chaos. Humanity's greatest achievements came from our messiest moments. You think we planned our way to the stars? Half our scientific breakthroughs happened because someone spilled something in a lab or misread an equation or was daydreaming when they should have been paying attention. The Zoltarians were now gathered around the coffee stain, analyzing it with their advanced sensors, murmuring to each other in tones that sounded disturbingly like excitement. Tell me more about this, Pizza, requested a Zoltarian scientist, looking up from the stain analysis. And these naps that produce dreams. Our species eliminated the need for regular unconsciousness epochs millennia ago. We may have overlooked certain experiential data. News of the Fletcher incident spread across the galaxy faster than a quantum entanglement wave. Within days, every spacefaring civilization had received some version of the now infamous diplomatic meltdown. Most versions featured increasingly embellished accounts of Ambassador Fletcher's tirade, with some claiming he had performed impromptu interpretive dance while explaining human bathroom humor. On the polite society, now hastily repurposed as a damage control vessel, Captain Thorne monitored the galactic fallout with a mixture of horror and fascination. Any updates from the Arcturian Confederation? She asked Commander Wolf, who was coordinating their intelligence feeds. They've requested an immediate diplomatic exchange, he replied, looking perplexed. But not with the diplomatic corps. They specifically asked for authentic humans who don't hide behind protocol masks. Thorne blinked. They what now? It's happening across the board, Captain, interjected Lieutenant Rodriguez from his communication station. The Proxima Centauri Collective, the Rigelian hierarchy, even the notoriously standoffish Tau Ceti Synod, they're all requesting genuine human cultural exchanges. The Tau Cetians specifically asked if they could observe a human game night with alcohol consumption. This can't be right, Thorne muttered, scrolling through the diplomatic alerts flooding her console. We've spent generations cultivating an image of dignified, rational beings who've evolved beyond our chaotic roots. And apparently everyone found that boring as hell, commented Wolf, not bothering to hide his amusement. The Syrians are requesting permission to broadcast unfiltered human entertainment content. They specifically mentioned something called reality cooking competitions that their cultural analysts identified from our leaked transmissions. Thorne groaned. Admiral Chang is going to have an aneurysm. Actually, Rodriguez said, checking another alert. The Admiral just issued new directives. Operation Dignified Facade has been officially terminated. New protocol is called Operation Just Be Yourselves, for better or worse. You've got to be kidding me. I wish I were, Captain. Oh, and Ambassador Fletcher has been promoted. Thorne nearly choked. Promoted? He threw coffee at the leadership of an advanced alien civilization. To be fair, Wolf pointed out, it worked out better than anyone could have predicted. The Zoltarians have established a new research division dedicated to constructive randomness theory based entirely on studying the coffee stain pattern. They're calling it a revolutionary breakthrough. As if on cue, the ship's communication system chimed with an incoming transmission. The view screen activated to reveal a non-human face that Thorne didn't immediately recognize, vaguely insectoid with iridescent compound eyes and mandibles that somehow conveyed amused interest. Captain Thorne? I am Professor Krillvox of the Galactic Anthropological Society. I wonder if I might have a moment of your time. Thorne straightened her uniform, falling back on diplomatic training. Of course, Professor. How may I assist you? The alien's mandibles clicked in what she would later learn was their species' equivalent of a chuckle. Captain, I've been studying humanity secretly for decades. My specialty is interspecies cultural analysis with a particular focus on what you might call sociological facades. But Thorne felt her stomach drop. I'm not sure I follow. To be blunt, Captain, most of us have known humans were pretending the entire time. A stunned silence fell over the bridge. I'm sorry, Thorne finally managed. You knew? Oh my, yes, it was rather adorable, really. Like watching a young child pretend to be grown up by wearing their parents' clothing. All those carefully constructed diplomatic protocols, the rehearsed expressions of serene wisdom. The way you all held your breath whenever one of you was about to sneeze during formal meetings. The alien's eyes glittered with amusement. "My dear Captain, humans leak emotional data like a damaged fusion core leaks radiation. You can't help it, it's in your physiological design." Commander Wolf snorted before he could stop himself. Thorn shot him a glare. "If you knew," she asked carefully, "why didn't anyone say anything?" "Scientific curiosity, initially. We wanted to see how long you could maintain the facade. Then it became something of an interspecies inside joke. Several civilizations had running wagers on what would finally cause the mask to drop." Professor Vox's mandibles clicked again. The Regalians lost quite substantially. They had bet on it being related to human mating rituals. Thorn pinched the bridge of her nose, feeling a headache forming. "So for 200 years, while we thought we were successfully presenting ourselves as a dignified, evolved species, you were actually like a toddler wearing a fake mustache insisting they're a doctor." "Yes," Vox confirmed cheerfully. "But here's the fascinating part now that Ambassador Fletcher has broken the seal, as you humans might say. Everyone is absolutely delighted. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is dealing with species who have actually transcended their evolutionary quirks? The Zoltarians haven't had a new cultural development in 3,000 years. The Arcturians engineered emotional responses out of their genetics 15 generations ago." The professor leaned closer to the screen, compound eyes glittering with excitement. "But humans, you're chaotic and contradictory and absolutely fascinating. You create art even when it serves no evolutionary purpose. You intentionally consume stories that make you sad. You organize your entire societies around concepts that don't physically exist. From a xenoanthropological perspective, you're the most interesting species we've encountered in millennia." 2 weeks after the Fletcher incident, the United Earth government made a historic decision. Humanity would stop pretending. After an emergency session of the Global Assembly that reportedly featured several fistfights and at least one impromptu karaoke performance, the recording of which became the most requested piece of human culture throughout the galaxy, Earth officially launched what media outlets quickly dubbed Operation Authentic Mess. Captain Thorn found herself reassigned as the head of a new diplomatic initiative, one focused not on presenting humanity's best face, but its most genuine one. "I still can't believe we're doing this," she muttered as she reviewed the itinerary for their first official unfiltered cultural exchange with the Proxima Centauri Collective. "Believe it," replied Commander Wolf, who looked far too pleased with the new direction. "Did you see the items they requested for the exchange? They want to experience an authentic human game night with competitive elements and mild intoxicants." "We're teaching aliens to play drunk charades," Thorn said flatly. "This is what my career has come to." "Could be worse," Rodriguez pointed out as he passed by with a crate labeled party supplies, diplomatic use only. "Ambassador Fletcher is hosting a human cookout for the Regalian hierarchy next week, complete with karaoke and something he's calling the Spicy Wing Challenge." Thorn winced. The Regalians have 4 stomachs and no concept of recreational discomfort. This will end badly. "Or brilliantly," countered Wolf. "The Zoltarians have already revolutionized 3 fields of mathematics just by studying human chaos patterns. Their new unpredictability engine based on Fletcher's coffee stain has solved computational problems their best minds have been working on for centuries. The polite society, now unofficially renamed by its crew as the Honest Mess, had been retrofitted for its new mission. Gone were the sterile, formal meeting rooms designed to project dignified restraint. They'd been replaced with spaces that actually reflected human culture, comfortable lounges with mismatched furniture, recreation areas with games from across Earth's diverse cultures, and a galley that could produce authentic cuisine rather than the bland, inoffensive diplomatic menu that had been standard for centuries. As Thorn walked through her transformed ship, She passed a newly installed cultural exchange hub where a team of xenoanthropologists led by Professor Krillvox was cataloging humanity's most unique traits for an eager galactic audience. "Ah, Captain," Vox called, mandibles clicking excitedly. "Come see what we've discovered. We've been analyzing human historical records without the diplomatic filters. And it's extraordinary. Did you know your species once had competitions where people would pursue wheels of cheese down dangerous inclines? Or that you invented thousands of different games whose sole purpose was to create artificial challenges for entertainment?" "Yes, Professor, I'm familiar with our history," Thorne replied dryly. "But it's magnificent." The alien enthused. "Do you realize most species eliminated such inefficiencies as they developed? The Arcturians purged recreational activities from their culture once they deemed them evolutionarily unnecessary. The Tao Sichens engineered contentment hormones that eliminated the desire for entertainment entirely. But humans, you've advanced technologically while still retaining these gloriously chaotic elements." Thorne had to admit there was something touching about the aliens' enthusiasm for humanity's messier qualities. For centuries, Earth's diplomatic corps had treated these aspects of human nature as embarrassing secrets to be hidden from the galactic community. Now, they were being celebrated as unique evolutionary advantages. A priority communication alert interrupted her thoughts. "Captain Thorne," came Admiral Cheng's voice, sounding uncharacteristically relaxed. "Status update?" "Preparing for the first official authentic exchange, Admiral. Though I still have reservations about this approach." "Noted, Captain, but the results speak for themselves. In the 3 weeks since Operation Authentic Mess began, we've established more meaningful interspecies alliances than in the previous century combined. The Zoltarians have offered us access to their quantum computing network in exchange for what they're calling creative consultancy. The Rigelians have opened their previously restricted medical databases after Ambassador Fletcher taught their High Commander how to play poker. And the long-term diplomatic implications?" Thorne asked. "Better than we could have imagined. Professor Vox's latest analysis suggests that humanity's chaotic nature may be precisely what the galactic community needed. These hyper-rational species have engineered themselves into evolutionary corners. They've optimized themselves so completely that they've lost the capacity for the random connections and illogical leaps that drive innovation." On the screen behind Admiral Cheng, Thorne could see footage of what appeared to be a diplomatic reception. In the center of the frame was Ambassador Fletcher, now sporting a loud Hawaiian shirt instead of formal diplomatic robes, demonstrating what appeared to be the Macarena to a group of fascinated alien dignitaries. "Is that the Arcturian High Chancellor doing the chicken dance?" Thorne asked incredulously. Sean nodded solemnly. "It is. Their xenobiologists report it's the first time in 12 generations that their species has engaged in an activity with no practical purpose. They're calling it a neurological revolution." As the communication ended, Thorne found herself standing at the viewport, watching the stars as her ship prepared to depart for Proxima Centauri. Humanity was venturing into the galaxy not as the dignified, evolved species they had pretended to be, but as the chaotic, contradictory, passionate mess they actually were. And surprisingly, the galaxy seemed to prefer them that way. 6 months after the day humanity stopped pretending to be civilized, Captain Mira Thorne stood in the observation deck of the newly commissioned diplomatic vessel Genuine Article, watching as delegates from 17 different species mingled at the opening ceremony of the first Interstellar Olympic Games. If you had told me a year ago that I'd be overseeing an event where humans teach aliens how to trash talk during competitive sports, I'd have had you psychologically evaluated," she remarked to Commander Wolf, who was looking resplendent in an official Earth delegation uniform that, in a nod to the new era of authenticity, included comfortable sneakers and a subtle but unmistakable beer holder. "And yet here we are," he replied. gesturing toward where Ambassador Fletcher, now promoted to Galactic Cultural Liaison, was enthusiastically explaining the concept of good-natured ribbing to a group of Rigelian athletes preparing for the zero-gravity handball tournament. Your maternal unit possesses such excessive mass that she creates her own gravitational field. One Rigelian attempted, their compound eyes blinking with uncertainty. Close enough, Fletcher encouraged. But remember, delivery is everything. You need to say it with feeling. Across the vast space station that hosted the games, similar scenes were playing out. Zoltarians who had once considered recreational activities an inefficient use of resources were now participating in what they termed strategic randomness exercises, or as humans called them, party games. The Arcturians, who had engineered emotional displays out of their species millennia ago, were cautiously experimenting with the concept of team spirit. Admiral Chang was right, Thorne admitted, watching as a Tau Sechan attempted to high-five a human athlete, missing slightly but appearing delighted by the attempt nonetheless. This is actually working. Turns out the galaxy didn't need another perfectly logical, ultra-evolved species, Wolf replied. It needed the cosmic equivalent of that friend who brings tequila to a dinner party and convinces everyone to play charades. Professor Krill Vox approached, now officially serving as the Galactic Anthropological Society's ambassador to Earth. Captain Thorne, Commander Wolf, isn't this magnificent? We've documented 17 distinct evolutionary advantages of human chaos theory in just the last month alone. Evolutionary advantages of being a mess. Thorne raised an eyebrow. This I have to hear. Oh yes, the Zoltarians have revolutionized their computational methods by incorporating what they call strategic irrationality. Basically, they're introducing intentional errors into their calculations to discover new mathematical pathways. The Arcturians have developed an entirely new form of medicine based on the human concept of happy accidents. And the Rigelians. The professor's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Thorne now recognized as their version of delighted laughter. The Rigelians have developed a new form of governance incorporating what they call the human chaos factor. On the main competition floor, the opening ceremony was reaching its climax. Representatives from each participating world carried their flags in a procession that, in previous formal diplomatic events, would have been arranged by strict protocol. Now it was a cheerful jumble of species, some attempting to perform human celebratory gestures like waves and cheers. You know what the best part is, Wolf mused, watching as an 8-limbed Proximan attempted to do the Macarena. We spent centuries trying to hide our human qualities, and it turns out those are exactly what make us valuable to the galactic community. Thorne nodded slowly. We thought we needed to evolve beyond our nature to be accepted. Turns out we just needed to be ourselves, messy, unpredictable, and all. As the ceremony reached its conclusion, Ambassador Fletcher stepped up to the central platform. Gone was any pretense of formal diplomatic language or rehearsed serenity. Instead, he grinned widely at the assembled interspecies crowd and the trillions watching via quantum transmission across the galaxy. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all configurations. He boomed with genuine enthusiasm. Welcome to the first Interstellar Olympic Games. Now, I've been instructed to say something profound and meaningful about this historic moment of galactic unity. He paused dramatically, looking around the stadium. But that's the old way of doing things, isn't it? So instead, I'll just say, let's have some fun and may the best beings win. The crowd erupted in a jumble of species-specific celebratory sounds. Somewhere in the stands, a group of Zoltarians was attempting to do the wave, their mathematically precise movements gradually giving way to more natural, chaotic motion. Thorne smiled, finally embracing the new reality. You know, I think this might be the beginning of something extraordinary. Extraordinarily chaotic, you mean? Wolf replied with a grin. Is there any other way for humanity to do things? As the games officially began, with the first ever interspecies zero-gravity handball match kicking off to raucous cheers, Captain Mira Thorne reflected that in all of human history, perhaps their greatest achievement wasn't reaching the stars, or developing advanced technology, or even establishing contact with alien civilizations. Perhaps it was finally having the courage to show the galaxy who they really were, a brilliant, messy, contradictory, creative species that had somehow stumbled its way to the stars while still arguing about pizza toppings and binge-watching reality TV. And wonderfully, impossibly, the galaxy seemed to love them for it.